Hey everybody, you're watching Cole the Corn Star. Ladies and gentlemen, today is the day we are going to start building walls on the first floor of my farmhouse. But before we can start building walls, we need to get boards thrown on top of our concrete so that way we can get our sill plates in place. We need to get everything bolted down, and then once we have that done, then we can start building. And as much fun as throwing boards down is and building things up, but before we can start doing any of that, we need to pull some measurements so that way we can make sure everything is nice and square, so when we are building things in the future, everything lines up exactly where it's supposed to. After a good little while of going around with tape measures and pulling things across and getting big measurements and writing down lines on top of our walls and then making sure everything is squared and then putting down chalk lines, I think we now have our inside chalk line on where our boards are going to go. And so now our next step is to actually start getting some stuff thrown on here. What are we doing, Roman?
Throwing stuff on it.
For the sill plate, we are going to be throwing down, since this is in direct contact with the concrete, we need to use some special pressure treated lumber, so that way the concrete doesn't cause this to degrade over time. And as another layer of protection, we are also going to be throwing down this foam sill seal. So this is going to go between the concrete and our pressure treated boards. And this is just going to be another measure we are going to be taking to protect moisture from coming from the concrete into the wood. Now, I don't know if this is the right way to do this or not, but we need to put a hole in this board so that way this bolt can go through it. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to take my square and I am simply going to make a line on this side of the bolt, and then I'm going to make a line on this side of the bolt, and then I'm going to get my board out of the way. And now we need to take our tape measure and measure from the chalk line that we have laid down to the middle of where our bolt is. So right here, we are 3.5 inches. Now, we have our spot where we know the bolt is going to sit. I'm simply just going to measure 3.5 inches in, and then I am going to put a dot right there. We're gonna drill our hole right there. Then when we go to set our board on top of the bolt, it should fall exactly where the hole is. All right, let's see how many holes I messed up.
Perfect.
Not too bad. Now that we got our holes drilled, we are going to put our layer of sill seal on. So we'll just be stapling it down so that way it doesn't move. And then we'll be ready to lay this thing down on top of the concrete. Oh. Whoa! Just for context purposes, the board that we are installing is this one. It's the one that sits on top of the concrete wall, and then once we have this board in place, we will be able to build the rest of the wall on top of it. While this board may seem like it's not really doing a whole lot because it's just a piece of wood sitting on top of some concrete, it does serve some really important functions. Thing number one, we have these bolts running through it, and we tighten nuts and washers down on top of it, so that way we can sandwich this board down to the concrete. So this is an anchor point for the bottom of our wooden wall. So that way we don't have to worry about the bottom of it kicking out. And then thing number two, since we have our sill seal at the bottom, when we sandwich everything down, this provides a nice little seal from wind being able to blow underneath of our wall. About any minute now, there is going to be a new piece of equipment showing up. and I'm really excited about it. Actually, we're gonna have two things showing up today. Dun, 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 dun. There it is. The brand new Wilson trailer. Oh my goodness, look at that. Oh, that thing looks so cool. Before I talk about this trailer, full transparency, this is not our trailer. A gentleman from Wilson Trailer sent me an email asking if we would like to demo a trailer for Harvest. And I said yes. And so here we are with the brand new trailer. It's not ours, but we are going to be running it for Harvest. With that being said, I introduce to you the brand new Wilson Pace Setter. Model year wise, I don't know if this is a 2025 or 2026. They literally built it like last week and it passed quality control 2 days ago, and they drove it straight from the factory lot here. So the dust that came on our gravel road is the very first dust that this trailer has ever seen. So this thing's brand new. The gentleman at Wilson Trailer Company asked if we wanted a white trailer, a black trailer, or this gunmetal gray. So we ended up picking the gunmetal gray because we are going to have the gray Freightliner pulling it, and I thought that would be a pretty good looking match going down the road. And man, this thing looks good. On our farm, we have 3 semi-trailers, and this will be number 4. We have 4 semis, so we will have every semi on a trailer. But when it comes to Wilson trailers, we have one other one, and it is a 1998. So it's gonna be kind of interesting to see these two things side by side and just point out all the differences that have changed over the last 25 years. Right off the top, just looking at a few things, I can point out several things that are a major change compared to our 1988 trailer, and those changes are going to be really nice. Number 1, at the back, we have a bunch of LED lights on the bottom, and we got them on the top, so if a car is coming up from the back, there's really nice light visibility. You can see this thing. Now, I'm not saying that our 1998 Wilson does not have lights, but once you see LEDs compared to a 1998 light bulb, these are 10 times brighter. The next thing that's drastically different is this back ladder. You can actually flip this one down, and when you climb up on it, since it's further away from the trailer, you can actually get your boot up in there and you have good tow room. You're not just kicking the trailer, where on our 1998 trailer, it just has the little rungs of the ladder riveted to the back of the trailer, and they stick out about this far, and so your feet, you're just kind of on your toes when you're climbing up the ladder. So this ladder just makes it much, much nicer to climb up and look in the hopper. And then while we are at the back of the trailer, quite possibly the best upgrade about this trailer is the fact that there is no hand crank for the tarp. This has an electric tarp on it. So you hold a button to open or close the tarp, which is so nice in quite literally every condition. This trailer is rocking the Lockdown Electric Tarp by Sioux City Tarp. That's their phone number and their website if you want to check them out. And we actually have this exact tarp on 2 of our other trailers, and we really like it. You seriously, you just walk up, you press the button, it closes, and then you're back on the road. Walking around the side of the trailer, this is a big old upgrade, at least as far as appearance goes. The aluminum polished wheels, you can almost see yourself in the reflection. Going down the side of the trailer, compared to our 1998, this one has a bunch of LED lights running a strip on the bottom, as well as the top. So when we're walking around this trailer at night, it's gonna be a lot more lit up, and you're gonna be able to see all the way around it. And then when you're going down the road, it looks kind of cool when you got the trail of lights going behind you. Now, as far as mechanical comforts go, the biggest upgrade on this trailer is the fact that this has air ride suspension. When you're going down the road, it feels like the trailer is riding on a bunch of pillows, where in our 1998 trailer, we have the old leaf springs, and that's kind of like riding a log down the road. It's rough. Speaking of comfort, there are also a few other comforts in the middle of this trailer. Number 1, we have these little viewing windows, which once they get filled with grain, we can look in and see a sample of what our grain looks like, which is super handy because when the combine's running, oftentimes the combine operator doesn't really like to get out. And so the people dumping semis usually kind of evaluate the grain and then communicate back to the combine driver and say, hey, I think you should make some adjustments. We're getting some cracked corn, or we're getting some ground corn, or our sample is starting to look a little dirty. So having the little viewing windows in the side of the trailer is nice because it just makes it that much easier for us to be able to communicate with the combine operator. Number 2, this trailer is outfitted with a pressure gauge that is tied to the back axles. Once we start filling the trailer full of grain, this thing kind of acts like a scale. So the fuller we get it, the more it goes. And once we know where our weight limit is on this, then when we're filling, we know to stop at whatever line we need to for where our weight limit is. So this is kind of like having a scale without having a scale. And then last but not least, if we climb underneath, the traps on this trailer are ran with a strap system. What's really cool about this strap opening system is the bearing sits outside of here, where on our 1998 trailers, they sit where these rivets are. And so our trap door is behind this, and when we have grain on it, it pushes down on that trap door, and that puts pressure on these bearings. So since our bearing is located out here, when it comes to opening these trap doors, they are way easier. Sometimes on our 1998, we have to use a 3-foot breaker bar to be able to get things opened up a little bit, where with the strap system, honestly, you could probably use your hand to crank it if you wanted to, but otherwise, with the actual crank, it's pretty much effortless. I'll show you what I mean. Look at this. Are you kidding me? I can open it. Yeah, definitely not doing this on the 1998. And then last but not least, up top, we have these wind straps that go over the tarp. So if you're opening or closing the tarp and you get a gust of wind, those help keep your tarp down and from getting blown off the side of the trailer. Our 1998 trailer does not have those. There are some differences on the inside of the trailer, but right now the tarp is closed and I need the semi hooked up to it in order to open it. So I will have to cover those later. But otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, the brand new Wilson trailer. The other new thing is supposed to be here in a couple hours, so while we're waiting for that, we're gonna finish getting this plate on top of the foundation wall, so that way we can start getting everything 100% ready to actually start building the walls. I'm running into a little bit of a problem. I just tightened the anchor bolts that I had over here, and then I stepped over into the first concrete part that we poured, and I went to go screw this thing on. And if I can get this one on, there we go. I get it on there, but it has a ton of wiggle in it. So apparently we have 2 different sizes of anchor bolts. I'm gonna go see if I can find another box of anchor bolts that has nuts. And if we don't, I guess we are not going to be able to tighten this plate down today. Anchor bolts, oh anchor bolts. Well, we found anchor bolts, but we need the nuts. I don't know what got on these bolts, but they smell like urine. Ugh. Yep, hands do too. After doing some investigating, it appears that these other bolts have had a loose nut on them as well, but they tightened down. But for whatever reason, I just have one right here that it is like the bolt is way too small. We got done putting our plates on just in time because look at this. We got our corn head. We'll check out the corn head here in a moment, but I just wanted to point out before Cooper leaves, he brought the gray Freightliner over. So it's a little bit off color versus the trailer. Maybe if the Freightliner had a fresher paint job on it, it would look more on color, but overall, I think that looks pretty good. Back to the corn head. Here it is. This is the new Calmer corn head. Over the past several years, we have been cycling through several different corn heads because we're looking for 2 main things. Number 1, and most importantly, when corn gets up into the head, we want it to stay here. We don't want it falling down on the ground. Every corn head is going to have it. It's just a matter of which ones do it less than others. So we're going to be giving that an evaluation this year on will this Calmer corn head do a good job of keeping the corn in the head. So that's number one. And then for thing number two, we are really looking for a corn head that will size our residue nice and small. So that way it can break down and all the fertilizer that's in the residue can then be reused for the next crop. And what makes this Calmer corn head so special is it has the Calmer BT stock rolls on it, the Calmer BT choppers. They pretty much turn the trash to confetti. After doing a couple of adjustments and getting an electrical wire hooked up for the automatic header height control as well as the auto steer feeler that's on the corn head, we now have this thing ready to go. So technically speaking, we could go out into the cornfield and start combining corn right now if we wanted to. And full transparency, this corn head is not ours. Marion Calmer, the owner of Calmer Corn Heads, contacted me and he asked if we would be interested in demoing a corn head for a season in exchange for our honest opinion on it. So here we are. We have the corn head, and I guess I'm going to be giving my honest opinion. Now when it comes to corn heads are kind of corn heads. They all more or less look the same. However, they all have small different things about them that make them unique. So some of the features on this corn head are, we have these blue little feelers right here. These are our auto steer sensors. They're little whiskers that feel the corn and then talk to the auto steer up in the cab. So these will keep us guided right down the row. And then we also have the automatic height control on this. There we go. There's a sensor in the middle, and then we have one on each end snoot. So that will allow the corn head to ride exactly how it is on the ground right now, and it will automatically adjust up, down, left, right as we go through the field. This Calmer corn head is outfitted with the Calmer deck plates, so they are beveled to help prevent butt shelling. And then inside we have the Calmer BT choppers. When we work our way up to the top, they run a bigger auger, bringing the grain in, and then it is off the bottom pan a little bit further than a normal head, so that way ears can fit underneath of it. So this auger is not chopping the ears in half, causing a bunch of breakage, causing grain to ultimately fall out. So inside of this auger, we basically have grain pushing grain, which is kind of nice. It makes it more gentle, and then it works its way up to the middle, where here in the middle, I don't know why anyone hasn't thought of this before, but they have this little black flapper plate thing right here that helps the grain have a nice smooth transition into the feeder house. All right. We are now back at the house. I had a green treat plate that it was really warped, so I'm gonna re-put this piece in because it didn't line up with our lines and it was doing wonky stuff. So we're gonna put that new one in, and then I have a little piece over here in the corner that I also need to put a new one in on because apparently I measured 7/8 of an inch wrong. For the last part of getting our plate bolted down, we are going to come in with these wedge bolts. On some of my boards, I do not have a bolt a foot from the end of the board, and I cannot have that. I just have some of these Tapcon screws sitting in here right now. It's basically just holding the board in place, that way it wouldn't move. But we are now going to come in with these wedge bolts. We're gonna drill a hole, and these things are kind of special because at the bottom, they have this little belled end with this little collar thing that slides on it. So when we end up sticking this down into the hole and we try pulling it out, this little collar slides down and it goes up this belled end and it mushrooms out. So then it can't pull out. So then we have a nice anchor point. So we need to put in about 10 of these all the way around. I ended up running short by 4 bolts, and the good news is the 4 bolts that I am short all go on this wall, and we cannot build this wall yet until we get the concrete grinders down into the underground movie theater to smooth out the floor. So we're not going to be worrying about this wall anyway, so next time I go into town I'm going to pick up some more anchor bolts, but otherwise in the meantime we're going to finish this sill plate. We're gonna throw the whiteboard on now. When it comes to installing the whiteboards, it's pretty much the exact same process as the pressure treated ones, other than the fact that we will not be installing a sill seal underneath, so it's much faster, and then we do not have to worry about bolting them down. The whiteboards will just sit up here, and then we can screw them into the pressure treated board. I would like to apologize. I just bought a new camera 2 weeks ago, and it has already died on me. And so I was not able to film putting the whiteboards down. Literally as soon as I turned it on to put the whiteboards down, it just started going, and it won't work anymore. So we got half the whiteboards on and it is now dark outside, which means I'm going to call it a night here. I'm gonna try to get this camera stuff figured out so that we have something to film with for the next video. But otherwise, this is all I got for today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.